Hey guys, this is Brad from DevOps Journey, and today we're going to talk about something very important to DevOps, and that's continuous integration / continuous deployment tools. Now, if you're just getting into DevOps, this is going to be a very important video for you. You're going to want to pick up on the concepts of continuous integration and continuous deployment tools, and you'll probably want to make your own project and just try them out. They're actually very easy to learn. And this video is intended for you to view, pick up on the key concepts so you can take them away and build your own project. And if you get stuck anywhere, just come back to the video and have a look at that component. I'm going to break everything down into timestamps and chapters, so this video will be very easy to navigate and jump around to the components that are important to you. Alright, so I'm going to jump right into the theory, and then we're going to start building a project using TravisCI. So if you're unfamiliar with what continuous integration is, it's basically the practice of automating the integration of code changes from multiple contributors. And basically how this is set up in practice is you'll have a source control tool like GitHub, you'll commit a change to your code and push it out to GitHub, and then your continuous integration tool will automatically detect that a change was made. Once it detects that a change is made, it goes out and downloads your code from your source control tool, and then it actually starts to build and run your code and run any tests that you have specified. After that occurs, it lets you know that everything is successful, all your tests pass, and then it has the option to actually deploy your code. And this is what we call continuous delivery or continuous deployment. And basically all it means is once all your CI tests pass, you can move on to the CD portion and push out your code to production. Okay, so before we get too into the weeds with the theory here, I'm going to go ahead and clone our code that we're going to be using for this project, and then we'll have a look at the TravisCI YAML file, which will really show you how easy it actually is to configure continuous integration. So I'm going to go ahead and clone the repository I've been working with here, and this is my Discord bot project. So if you are looking for a Discord bot, feel free to use the one I have here. This is a very simple bot, and this is the Discord bot that we actually use in our DevOps Journey Discord channel. And if you want to chat with other people in the DevOps field who are learning and trying to push their career forward, please feel free to join us. Anyways, I have cloned the directory, and now I'm going to hop in there. And let's have a look at this code. Alright, so this is a Python project, but you don't need to know Python to sort of understand what's happening here. I'm going to break this down really quickly. Here we have the Python file, which is our actual Discord bot. We have this requirements file. This file specifies all the Python packages that are required to be installed for the Python script to run, and this file is commonly packaged with any sort of Python script, and our Docker file is actually going to take in this requirements file and automatically install all these files, and our TravisCI continuous integration tool is going to have a look at the Docker file and make sure that it can run the Docker file and build the Docker file into an image. So let's go ahead and have a quick look at the Docker file right now. And if you're not familiar with what Docker is, I have a full-length course. If you're interested in that, I will post the playlist up top. But basically, the summary of it is it's a container management system, and our Python script is going to run within our Docker container, and the Docker file is actually going to build an image for our container to run off of. And if we have a look at this Docker file, they're actually pretty easy to understand. It's basically taking a basic Ubuntu image, it's doing an apt-get update, it's installing Python, and then setting some environment variables, copying things over. And then this is the requirements.txt portion that I was talking about. So Python is installing all the Python modules within the requirements.txt file. So basically what TravisCI is going to do is it's going to take this Docker file and then make sure that the image builds. So if I were to mess up this Docker file and commit the changes to GitHub, TravisCI would see the commit, it would pull it down, it would start a build, and then run all the tests that I have configured. If any of the tests fail, then TravisCI would notify me that there's something wrong with my latest commit. If all the tests pass, then it has the option to push it out to production. So let's go ahead and have a look at the Travis YAML file. And here you can see that there's actually not a lot of configuration for a simple deployment like the one I have. Okay, so the first thing that we have defined in our Travis YAML file is the architecture. And basically this is where you can select the different types of architecture that TravisCI will build your code against. Right now I have ARM64 selected, so it's going to build it on an ARM64 image and test it against that. Now if I wanted to, I could put in a list of all the different architectures I want it to run against, but ARM64 is going to be good enough for my code here. Now the next thing we have here is environment variables, and basically you can see that I'm using an environment variable named image name, and I'm actually making reference to it later on in my code. So it's very easy to set environment variables within this Travis YAML file. Now, if you have sensitive environment variables that you don't want to go into your source control, then those can be explicitly defined on TravisCI itself as private variables, and I'll show you how to do that later when we go and have a look at our builds in TravisCI. The next thing we have listed here is services, and this can be things like databases, like you can put MySQL, MongoDB, or anything like that. But I actually am using Docker, and basically what it's telling TravisCI is to have the Docker service available because I'm going to use Docker commands. And you can see that I'm doing a Docker command here, and I actually have this commented out because I was doing a little bit of troubleshooting. I'll take this comment out. But basically you can see I'm running a Docker command, and the reason it's able to run that Docker command is because the Docker service is enabled. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's look at these next three parameters here, and it's the before install, the script, and the after success. So these are very simple to understand. The before install is what you want to happen before your script runs. The script are all the commands that you want to run your script. And then the after success is what you want to happen if everything passes successfully and your build is okay. So having a look at my after success, you can see I log into Docker Hub and I push the Docker image. And then after that, I connect to my production server and push over my code using SSH. Now, there's a ton of different options you can do. You can automatically connect to like Azure, AWS, or a whole list of providers and automatically push your code to your production servers. And basically, the options are endless, but I wanted to push to my own personal server, so I just did an SSH script. The before install, I'm basically building my Docker image that I want my script to run on. And underneath my script, I'm not even running my code right now because there's no test built into my Python script, so there's nothing really for it to test. But later on, as I continue to develop my script, I'm going to add a bunch of tests and add them in here. What I have here is actually just some code for me to get the IP address of the TravisCI server that was pushing to my server. I was having some firewall issues, and when I did this, I was able to find out the IP range that TravisCI was using, so I could unblock that range from my firewall. So anyways, that's the YAML file. Let's go ahead and have a look at TravisCI.com and put this all together. Alright, so we're on travis-ci.com/signin, and we're going to sign in now. Now, if you're following along, make sure to use travisci.com and not .org. .org is their older version. So I'll go ahead and sign in with my GitHub credentials. And it's going to automatically log me in. And you can see my Discord bot, and my build is right here. I've actually already linked all my projects. If you're just getting started and want to link one of yours, I'll show you how to do that now. Go to this button at the top right and go to settings, and this is where you should see all your projects, and if they're not showing up, then you'll need to manage your repositories and sign into GitHub, and then you can see that TravisCI is asking for permission, and you can select all repositories or just a specific one. I'll do all repositories and hit save. And once you do that, you should see all your repositories within TravisCI. And here I can see all of them. And you'll notice that each repository has their own settings. You can go in, and this is where you would set environment variables and other settings for that project. Let's go ahead and look at the Discord bot project that I have here. And just having a quick look at this, you can see that the last build was successful. It pulled from the master branch, and it ran and completed. This is the 29th build that it's done. And it took about 5 minutes to run the build. It gives you the latest commit, so if you click there, you can see what exactly was changed. We can see I changed the TravisCI file, I changed some of the logic in my SSH connection. And then if you have a look here, it has information on the actual build. It's using the ARM64, and this was an environment variable that was specified. And if we look down here, we can see exactly what happened within the system. So it did the build, it ran the commands that I specified. Here you can see it's bringing in all the private environment variables that I have specified. Here it's running the script command. Down here is the after success stuff. Basically it's going to Docker and it's going to SSH into my production box and push my code. So to see this all in action, I'm just going to go ahead and hit restart build. And we can watch the build actually happen. So you can see that it went from green and now it's yellow because it's actually running the build now. And I'm just let this run, and I'll speed it up a little bit so you don't have to sit through for 5 minutes. Alright, so it looks like that completed successfully. And if we scroll to the top, we can see that the build was successful. And if we look at the build history, we can see all the past successes. Now it's still marked number 29 because this is actually in reference to the commit number, not the times that it ran within TravisCI. Now the important part of continuous integration products is that you don't have to really touch them for them to work. It's not very often you would come in here and hit restart build or start build. What you want to happen with these CI integrations is for them to go to your GitHub repository, monitor it, and automatically trigger the build when it sees a new commit. So let's go ahead and make some changes within our code to force a new commit. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to, we can see that we've already made a few changes actually, but I'm going to go into the Docker file and I'm just going to mess it up. Just take out a bunch of lines of code and save it and commit it. So let's save our changes here and commit it to GitHub as messed up Docker file. Now that I've made the commit, TravisCI is automatically going to go out and start the build, but it's going to run into some issues when it gets to my Docker file because I messed it up, and it's going to let us know. So let's have a look and see what happens here. It's going to take a minute or two for it to identify that a new commit was released, but as soon as it does, it should trigger automatically.
5 minutes later.
Because I committed the change, but I didn't push it to GitHub, so let's go git push. And that should push it out. I can see it's waiting. It looks like it's going through. Okay, it went through. Let's check TravisCI, do a quick refresh. And I think it's going to pick it up in a minute or two here. So let's go ahead and wait. So TravisCI hasn't started the build yet, but I just want to show everyone something here, and it's my GitHub page, and you can see in GitHub that it has this message, and basically it's TravisCI saying that it hasn't completed its checks, and that's why it's showing amber. If there's something wrong with this build, it'll show up red, and if it's good, it will show up green. And I can see in the background that it did run, and it looks like it failed. And if we look around, you can see that it errored out on the Docker image build command, and that's because we messed up that Docker file. So let's go ahead and undo those changes we did. Hit save, and now let's recommit this. And let's remember to push it this time. And pulling up the Git page, we can see that the last commit failed. And then if we refresh, we can see it's looking at the newer commit. And we can see that it's running in TravisCI, so I'll just leave this running and we can watch to see if it's successful this time. And scrolling down, we can see it's going through the Docker build, and it looks like it's completing everything. I'm going to go ahead and speed this up again, and let's see if we get a success. Alright, having a look here, we can see the build on commit number 31 was successful. If I pull up GitHub and refresh here, we can see that it's a green checkmark status, so TravisCI has checked this and said it's okay. And if we look at our build history, we can see commit number 29 was working, we made commit number 30, and that broke the Docker file, and then commit number 31 successfully fixed the build. And we have a complete change history. You can see I was messing around for quite a while on this, and you can basically go back to any of the builds and see exactly what happened. So if we go to this commit number 21, we can see what was happening there and how it was successful. So it really just gives you a good idea of all the changes that your code has gone through and how it has affected your builds over time. Now let's have a look at some of the settings you can set within a project. So if I go to more options, you can see settings right here, and this is the environment variables that I was talking about. So it's very easy to set an environment variable, you give it a name and then a value, and then you can say the privacy of that value. So you can see most of mine are private, but this one doesn't really matter because it's just the path, so I choose to display the value. Now the reason that you would want to hide it is because this information is publicly available to anyone that goes to this URL. So if I was to open a new browser, a private browser from Firefox, and go to this URL, well, let's put that in properly, go to this URL, you can see that I have access to see everything that happened, so I wouldn't want an SSH key to be showing up. Now you do have the option to use private builds and private repositories, but then you'll need to start paying for TravisCI. So these are the different options. You can see that it's free for open source, and if you keep everything open, it's always free, but if you want to do things privately, you gotta pay for one of these options here. So I like open source. I don't really have a lot of private repositories, so keeping it open is fine for me, and it's always good practice to hide your variables anyways and not have them uploaded to source control, so I'm fine with that. Anyways, that's all I really have to show in regards to TravisCI. Continuous integration platforms are something you can't really learn unless you start doing it yourself. So I highly suggest for your next project, you implement CI/CD in some way and start using a tool like TravisCI. And if you run into any issues, ask a question in the comments below or join our Discord and we'll try to help you out there. Anyways, I want to thank everyone for watching, and a big thank you goes out to everyone that has been subscribing. It really motivates me to continue creating content. So thank you to everyone that stuck around to the end of this video. Anyways, that's all I have to share, so I hope to see you all in the next video.